Why are the teachers' unions in this country so powerful? Why do they exercise so much control and negative power over our schools?
It's partly because the teachers' unions took advantage of a vacuum of leadership. I think generations before me were not really paying attention to what was going on in the schools. There's a lot going on in the world, a lot going on in politics, and they took full advantage of being able to push their ideology onto our youth and shape the future of politics with their political donations, with carrots and sticks, and all of the public funding that goes into that. They have really been successful in something that we have not, in influencing next generation to left-wing ideologies.
All right, so there's lots to do with school reform, but to me, one big thing is limiting the power of the unions. We saw during COVID, they put their own interests ahead of the kids. We see with their opposition to lots of types of education reform. So I'm not against teachers, and I don't think the unions should be abolished, but what are concrete steps that the federal government or governors could take or local people could take to limit the ability of the teachers' unions to call far too many of the shots in our schools?
Well, school choice is the number one way that we break the power of the teachers union. Many of the schools of choice are not actually unionized, and that allows for some competition, not just for parents to choose the school that best fits their students' needs, but also for teachers to compete and find ways that they could maybe have better working conditions, teach in the way that they feel is better for them as a professional. And that's one way. In Florida, we also passed paycheck protection, which means that taxpayers are no longer subsidizing the deduction of union dues by school districts. I mean, we sign up for all kinds of subscriptions, right? Why shouldn't the unions have to go directly to their members and be held accountable with the union dues that are coming directly out of their accounts, not out of their paychecks before teachers ever receive the money? There are lots of reforms that we're doing, including dismantling the Department of Education to break down the power of the teachers unions. But ultimately, a free market is what's going to solve this problem long term.
Yeah. The tragedy for our kids was Michigan years ago tried to pass a school choice piece of legislation and on the ballot, and it failed. And it scared a lot of Republicans, a lot of people who believed in choice for kids. It scared a lot of them into fighting as a political issue. But Governor DeSantis and others now, we're in kind of a second wave where people are trying to fight for school choice. Well, explain to people who don't know, how does it work? How does that competition get created, and why does that make public schools better if you allow money to follow kids to whether they're magnet schools, charter schools, parochial schools? How does that make public schools better?
Well, we believe in capitalism, right, and the free market and competition. However, over the last 100 years, parents have been locked into where they live is where their children go to school. In states like Florida and 17 other states where universal choice is now the norm, parents get an account. The money that would have otherwise followed their child to the local public school, the parent gets to use that money to choose a private school, maybe pay for homeschool expenses, online courses, tutoring, etc. It makes parents into consumers and allows schools to then compete for those dollars. We're seeing in places like Florida, Arizona, where this is more developed, schools are competing, including public schools that are creating new programs, magnet programs, in introducing classical education into the public school district in order to compete with the private options that parents now have the agency to pay for.
Right, but you do have the challenge, as you well described it. It means that the current bureaucrats and school boards who run these failed systems have to rise to the occasion, right? They haven't risen to the occasion up till now, but they have to say, well, the market pressure, the competition is such, we need to up our game. We need to change our rules so we can fire bad teachers and principals. We need to improve our education so kids and parents want to come to our schools. What gives you faith that they are ready to up their game rather than just having a tale of two cities where the smart parents and the ones who really are aware of how to give their kids opportunity take all their money away from the public schools, and the public schools collapse? How can you be sure that won't happen?
Let me tell you about Miami-Dade County. This is the fourth largest school district in the country, urban school district, majority minority, majority low income, majority English as a second language. 75% of their students are attending a school that is not their zone school. And assuming that of the 25%, 10 to 15% chose the school that they're zoned for, we're talking about in a district that has embraced school choice, nearly 90% of families actually making an active decision about where and how their child should be educated. That is the future. That is the future of education in this country. We just received polling that over 80% of Americans, both Republicans and Democrats, believe that parents should decide how and where their children are educated. This has become an 80-20 issue. Good policy will follow. And as parents become consumers, more competition, transparency, and accountability will also result.
What so embarrasses me for the guardians of the status quo is every time an urban school system makes slots available in charter schools, poor parents line up in the hundreds and the thousands to get the slots. And you would think that people who are guardians of the status quo, the bureaucrats, the Democratic politicians, and the teachers unions would say, look at all this interest in something different, and we better change. But it doesn't spur them to change. My friend Ryan Gerdusky, I don't know if you know Ryan, but he has the largest PAC in the country that supports candidates for school board who believe in market solutions to our failing schools. Why isn't there more money, to Ryan's efforts notwithstanding, why isn't there more money in the legal side of things? There was a group of Democrats who formed an organization to try to use the courts for this. Why isn't there somewhere, and I've advocated this, but I don't know why it doesn't exist. There needs to be a 24-hour war room with hundreds of millions of dollars in it to fund legal challenges, do public relations, create content. Why isn't there more money behind making the changes that you believe in?
Well, there is more and more support for this, as you stated, more organizations coming in, including America First Policy Institute. Our legal team is on top of a lot of these cases that are going to continue to expand school choice in the states. But it's not a glamorous issue, right? It hasn't been in the past. Only really since COVID has it come into the forefront, and we've seen this hockey stick of school choice programs passing. But of course, the unions and their allies are suing in all of these states to block parents from having education options. However, we have seen on the political spectrum, the Democrats shying away from this issue because they know that even their own constituents want education choice. We now have a federal tax credit that I believe is going to be available even in blue states. So I think we're going to see this, just like the trans issue, to be a radical issue on the left that a lot of moderate Democrats are not going to want to touch. And that's going to give us an open door to continue to push these policies in every state.
Do you think much about the power within the two main teachers unions? And is it possible that somebody could become head of the union, not like Randy Weingarten, who's a guardian of the status quo, but could we see someone build political support within the two main teachers unions for change, or is that not possible?
I really think that they are on the downturn in terms of their political power. Randy Weingarten has not done them any favors. She's out there at these radical rallies on every other issue besides education. They showed who they truly were during COVID when they didn't want to come to work, when the American people were working and needed a place for their children to go and get educated. I think that they have lost their power. They're not going to be able to gain it back, no matter what Mom Donnie version of Randy Weingarten comes up and tries to take power. The school choice movement is so strong and so across the board support with Democrats and Republicans. And we're gaining steam. And the more competition that parents have access to, the more quality and assessments that we show the results on student performance. I think we are unstoppable when it comes to establishing education freedom in every state in America.
You need to ask yourself, are you being lied to? Wall Street insists the only way to have enough money to retire is to put your life savings into a 401k or an IRA and then roll the dice with it in the Wall Street casino. But if that were true, why does studies show the average American following that advice will outlive their savings by a staggering 10 years? And even the man who invented the 401k says it's a monster that should be destroyed. Now it's time to get the truth and discover a better way to grow and protect your money. Bank on Yourself is the proven retirement plan alternative banks and Wall Street desperately hope you never hear about. It gives you guaranteed predictable growth in retirement income, tax-free retirement income, built-in inflation protection, and much deserved and needed peace of mind. You can get a free report that reveals how you can bank on yourself and enjoy tax-free retirement income, guaranteed growth, and control of your own money. Just go to bankonyourself.com/Mark to get your free report. Again, that's bankonyourself.com/Mark. One more time, bankonyourself.com/Mark.